Welcome back to this week's edition of Parshas Shavua. Parshas Shavua, as always, is brought to you in conjunction with the Weiss Entertainment Network. As you can see on the screen, this week's Parsha is Parshas Bo. So there's a famous Vilna Gaon that says if you look at the first two letters of last week's Parsha, Va'era, Vav and Aleph, which equals 7, and you take the three letters of Beis and Aleph, which is Bo, which equals 10, which is 3, which equals 10, and you have 7 makos in last week's parsha, symbolic of the vav and the aleph, and you have Beis and aleph, which is this week's parsha, which is the last 3 makos. So in Parshas Bo, we're going to see the last of the three makos. The last of the 3 is, which is Makkah number 8, is Makkah's Arba. As you can see in the picture, the intensity of Arba, it was all over the place, it was all over the land. Hashem warns Paro and Moshe warns them that there will be Arba Hayah B'chol Makom. It was everywhere. Arba Kisat Ein Haaretz, it covered the entire land, and it destroyed whatever was not destroyed in Barad. Remember, at the end of the Parsha, it said that things that were not fully ripened were not destroyed by Barad, but in this case, completely destroyed. But in the end, the results were the same. Paro did not lo hiskim l'shalach et Israel. Makkah number 9 is a famous Makkah of Choshech. It was Makkah of darkness. The Makkah of darkness consisted into 2 parts. Number 1, there was 3 days where it says Lo ra'u ishet achiv, where they simply could not see each other. And then they had another 3 days, Lo kama ish mitachtav shlosha yamim. So Rashi says that was the breakdown. The first 3 days they couldn't see, and then the second 3 days the darkness was so intense that they couldn't even move, and they were stuck in place. To quote Rashi, Yashav lo yachol amod, amad lo yachol lashevet. If they were standing, they couldn't sit, and if they were sitting, they couldn't stand. The Medrash brings down that there were 2 reasons for Makas Choshech. Reason number 1 was so there were a lot of Jews who had fallen away from the Jewish people, and they did not want to go out of Mitzrayim. They wanted to stay and be part of Egyptian society. So it says during Makkah Choshech, Hashem wiped out those people and punished those people, and he didn't want that the Mitzvah will see, and they'll say that also Bnei Israel are getting plagues. The second is the more famous one, is that we know, and we're going to see soon, that Bnei Israel was supposed to leave Mitzrayim filled with riches, with gold and silver and clothes. During Makas Choshech, Bnei Israel went into the Egyptian houses and they looked for all the utensils. Now, one should not think that they took them. They only looked for them. Just in case the mitzvah will say, we don't have any. So they will say, we were in your house and we saw exactly where you are. Now, the end of Makas Choshech, Vayomer lo Paro lech me'elai, Hisham elecha al tosev ra'os panecha, ki v'yom roscha panai tamus. At the end of Makas Choshech, Paro said to Moshe that you're not allowed to come back to me, because the day that you return to me, you will be killed. Paro believed that somehow if he keeps Moshe out of the palace, then nothing is going to happen to them anymore, and that will not take place. Now, what happened was, as we look at the beginnings of the preparations for Yetzias Mitzrayim, Moshe warns Paro before even he leaves the palace. So even though Paro said don't come back, but Moshe says to Paro, if you don't listen this time, is going to be Yetzias Mitzrayim. Now we see here that one of the preparations is that Hashem comes to Moshe and says, go to Bnei Israel and tell them that they have to take kesef, zahav, and smalos. Not silver actually, but silver material, silver cup and different things, a silver plate. Why? Because the promise was to Abraham that they will leave Mitzrayim with wealth. And Hashem said, Rashi quotes, that Hashem said to Moshe, I don't want Abraham coming to me and saying that, you kept the promise that they'll be slaves, but you didn't keep the promise that they will go out wealthy. So please make sure they take the silver and the gold and the different things. Now, we have also, again, the warning for Makat Bechorah. Rashi says that, again, to mention, it took place before Moshe left the palace. The other thing that's interesting is that Moshe, when he warns them about Makat Bechorah, he uses the term kachatzot talayla, around midnight. So Rashi brings down the idea that Hashem was exact. Later we're going to see Vayhi bachatzi alayla. Hashem brought Makas Bechoros exactly at midnight. So how come Moshe said around midnight? So Rashi brings an interesting idea. He says that in case the Mitzrayim calculated and they calculated wrong, they'll say Moshe is a liar. And maybe, and especially if their time was later, they would have said, "Had you given us the chance, we would have given in." So instead, Moshe said Kachatzos Halayla, which is around midnight. That takes us into Perek Yud Beis, where we have the first mitzvah. Rashi calls the first mitzvah Shenitzal Bo Yisrael. It's the first mitzvah commanded to the Jewish people, a mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh. So we have spent a considerable amount of time discussing this topic. Here you see the different cycles of the moon. So there were a number of details in this mitzvah. Number one, that they had to declare Rosh Chodesh based on witnesses coming and seeing they saw the new moon. Second thing was that Nisan is considered the first month. The other aspect, which is Kazer Re'eh Kadesh, two things. Number one, we know that Hashem commanded Moshe this mitzvah on Rosh Chodesh Nisan because he was able to show him what the new moon looked like. Rashi also brings that Moshe had difficulty understanding exactly what was the point of the new moon where it was declared Rosh Chodesh. So Hashem points to the new moon in the sky and says, Kazer Re'eh Kadesh. When you see the moon look like that, you'll know that the time has come for it to be Rosh Chodesh. It also should be noted that Hashem commands the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh to Moshe and Aaron. Rashi says that because Aaron gave of himself and spent so much time involved in the Makos, so he was included as a reward in the first mitzvah, which is the mitzvah of HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh. Following this mitzvah, when we read Parshas HaChodesh, this is the perek that we read, Perek Yud Beis, first 20 psukim. So Bnei Yisrael was commanded with the Korban Pesach. You can see in the background of the picture they have the lamb, a goat, or a sheep. So there were a number of details in the commandment for the Korban Pesach. Number one, Bnei Yisrael in Mitzrayim was commanded to take the animal on the 10th day of Nisan. That was not necessarily true in future generations, but specifically in Mitzrayim, they were told on they were commanded on Rosh Chodesh Nisan to take the animal on the 10th day of Nisan. And then they were given some of the rules. It had to be male, it had to be less than a year old, and it had to be either a goat, a sheep, or a lamb. Then the next halacha was they had to keep it until the 14th day of Nisan, and on that day, on the middle of the day of Shachatu, so Kol Kahal Yisrael Bein Arbaim, that they shechted it in the afternoon of the 14th day of Nisan, the day that we call Erev Pesach. Now, one detail that was only for the Jews in Mitzrayim was the dam. Once they shechted the Korban Pesach, in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, the blood was taken and was sprinkled on the Mizbeach. In Mitzrayim, the blood was taken and was painted on the two sides of the door and across the top. That was a halacha only for the Jews in Mitzrayim. And finally, the achluas habasar b'layla hozetz li'esha matzos. So number one, the Korban Pesach had to be roasted. And one of the requirements of the roasting of the Korban Pesach is that the animal had to be whole. You couldn't cut it up into pieces and then roast it. It had to be roasted whole. Second thing was it was eaten by Laila Hazeh. What's Laila Hazeh? The night of Pesach. The night where Makas Bechoros had taken place. Equivalent to the night where we sit down to the Seder. The other requirement was Sli'esh, that it had to be roasted. The only way to make the Korban Pesach was roasted. The Gemara tells us that all the Korbanos of that night were only roasted meat. Then it had to be matzos. You had to eat the Korban Pesach with matzah, umerorim, and maror. In other words, it was the meat, the matzah, and the maror all eating together. So we know at the Seder we have a practice where we eat what's called korach. Korach technically should have been not just matzah and maror, the sandwich that reminds us of Hillel, but korach should have been with the piece of meat inside the sandwich, and that should have actually been how the Korban Pesach was eaten. So those are just some of the details of the Korban Pesach. Finally, we came to the big moment. Vayhi b'chatzia laila, v'Hashem yikach kol b'chor. It was the middle of the night, and Hashem brought the plague on all the firstborn. And we know from the Midrashim that anything that resembled the firstborn died, even animals, even the prisoners in the jails. And Rashi gives different reasons, so they wouldn't say that their God punished them, or a lot of different aspects of Makas Bechoros. But when it happened, and we all know the famous song "Paro in Pajamas," Behemsa Halayla, the Paro came and he, in the middle of the night, and he told Moshe and Aaron that they should get out. There is a discussion in the Gemara. When is exactly the most important point? Is it the day when they actually went out, or was it when Paro told them? And that relates to eating of afikoman. We eat afikoman by midnight because that was the Shas Hanes, etc. Vayisu b'nei Israel, says Tzias Mitzrayim in the picture. Keshesh b'yos elef ragli, or over 600,000 men between the ages of 20 and 60, and they left from a place called Ramses, and they went to a place called Sukkos, and that represented the beginnings of Yetzias Mitzrayim and the march to Har Sinai, Matan Torah. So finally, we come to some of the details that are left in this story. Number one, the halachas of Pesach. So the pasuk says, "Zachor es yom hazeh." You got to remember the day you went out of Mitzrayim, which is Pesach. Lo yechel chametz, and you should not eat chametz. And then we have matzos yechel eshivas yamim, the mitzvah of eating matzah, and not having chametz in your house, what's called bal yera'eh, bal yimatzeh. We have Vikara Telvinga, teaching your children Torah, telling them the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, etc. And finally, we have the mitzvah of tefillin. Tefillin is a sign on our hand and a remembrance between our eyes that Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. And so when a person puts on tefillin every day, a person is supposed to think about the mitzvah of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And so that in general is Parshas Bo in a nutshell. Obviously, there's a lot more to talk about on this parsha. A very deep parsha with a lot of mitzvos and a lot of different things going on. But this program does not allow such details. Mr. Shem, we should learn it together at some other point. I want to wish everyone a good Shabbos, and we conclude this video on Parshas